I think there's room for a lot of different kinds of data scientists.
Exactly. And maybe that's one of the key points, that we have grown from a quite one broad term, and now more maturity means it's sort of branching out more clearly. We have talked about the analytics versus machine learning engineering.
Right.
It is different.
And I know you have some ideas about recruitment and the good way and bad ways to do that.
Right.
Perhaps that would be a fun topic to have at some point soon.
Sure.
Yeah.
But before we do that, can you just quickly introduce yourself? Who is Robert Luciani?
Right. My name is Robert, and I have a bit of a multinational background. I was born in the US. I lived in Italy for a number of years, the United States for a number of years, and now I'm mostly Swedish. I've been here since 2000, so that's 20 years now. So more Swedish than anything else, I take it, I suppose. And I have a number of interests in addition to computers. I really like computers because they feel like magic a little bit, I guess. And I like Olympic weightlifting.
Really?
I like first-person shooters, like Quake, and I like music
Quake 3,
a lot.
Quake 2, which one?
Quake 3, yeah, the competitive arena ones. I like Quake 1, all of them from the beginning, so it's good.
Yeah.
And then music, of course.
Yeah, and music is a big thing. I've played in a number of bands, signed at labels, and been doing that for a long time. And I guess the genres of music I like are the ones that are most pretentious, so like jazz fusion and that kind of thing. But I like the energy of heavy metal, so I try to blend them.
See, it's because I know you more as a heavy metal guy.
Yeah.
But you have more of a jazz fusion.
Yeah, I think
going
so.
on now.
I think the metal is the part that you hear the most, because it's the loudest part. But there's a lot of theory and music theory underneath there. Yeah.
Cool. And so you're in a band right now? Are you
No,
doing
right now
something?
I'm just doing solo project. I've been writing this album for many years now. It's just a passion project of mine.
Yeah. And how do you sort of work on that? Alone on different instruments, or you get friends in doing different pieces?
I mean, it's super cool because it was actually a Swedish band called Meshuggah that sort of kicked it off by releasing a drum sample library that let people write drum parts, which before used to be cost prohibitive, basically. Now, anybody that has a small laptop, any gaming laptop, can get really, really good music quality at home, basically. So it's really lowered the threshold for how much it costs to get good quality. And since 2005, everybody basically is able to write everything at home and write all their own stuff. So that's a little bit what, I was fortunate to be part of that wave from the early 2000s.
And does this wave have a name? What's the sort of, is this?
Yeah, that particular brand of metal is typically referred to as gent.
Gent.
Yeah, because it sounds like gent. Yeah.
At some point in the future, I will introduce you to dance band, Swedish dance band music as well.
Right,
and,
yeah.
Convert you into that, perhaps.
Yeah. That would be a good argument. Pros and cons of gent versus Swedish dance band.
That would be certainly very fun. I remember at Spotify days, I think I am probably paraphrasing a lot or saying something wrong, but they said, or I think Donnelly X said at one point, so Spotify is a tech company at core, but with music in the heart.
Right.
Is that a good description of you would say?
Yeah, I think I'm often humbled by the depth of all these fields, and I think being an artist is saying very much and very little at the same time. So I like being a musician first and foremost, more than being an expert at any one thing.
We spoke a bit about art before, and what the definition of art. Do you have a good definition of what do you think art is?
Yeah,
okay, I'd love to hear it.
A philosophical definition, and that art is what the art community agrees is art. So basically, it's a gang of people that get together and say, yeah, we all like this stuff. And what I really like about it is that there's no threshold for who's allowed to be an artist or not. You can be a painter and make really paintings that don't look like anything in specific, but it's okay for you to still be an artist. Just not a very popular one, or maybe not a very accurate one, but you're still an artist.
But if you were to just say one day you focus a lot on working with art, and another day you work a lot with some data science AI project.
Yeah.
Is there something that is fundamentally different about, what the purpose is, how you work, or, instead of this kind of circular reference type of definition, which I have some problem with.
Well, it is. It's a very self-serving type of narcissistic definition. The everybody that likes it can join the club, and now we're artists.
Yes, exactly.
But it used to be that art was, if you're an artisan, right? If you're making a sword, you're a smith, and your art was banging that sword in such a way that it was, spectacular when it was produced. And really what you'd done is laid your soul bare into the sword. This was the expression of your skill. It was your art. And then came art that served its own purpose, like dance and that kind of other thing. But it's all art. And I guess one thing that links us humans to art is that a lot of art is irrational. It's part of our brains that is very distinctly human. And there are some really neat things that link us to music and other kinds of art. So in particular with music, I don't know if it's because speech is so important to humans, but I think there's a short circuit from our ears to our brain where we hear symmetries especially well, because birds are very good at hearing and understanding frequencies and everything, but they don't necessarily get triggered by and even small children understand that in a special way. So we probably have a little bit of a bug where our ears are connected a little bit too strongly to parts of our brain that get stimulated by symmetry and sound, either in harmony or beats and that kind of thing.
So is that a bug or a feature? I mean, would you say that you have some kind of help of being an artist in the way you are, in the work you otherwise do for more professional purposes, so to speak?
I think mostly just makes me a little bit too excited about things that I find fascinating. And just to go a little bit deeper in that symmetry thing, when you hear a beat or some harmonies or some melodies that just really speak to you, that's basically symmetry in the music piece, in either in time or in frequency. We don't get that excited about seeing rocks that are symmetric or other things. We do about faces and that some kind of thing, but really it's about what kind of sort of patterns that we get excited about discovering. So there's something very special about sound compared to all the other stimulus that we get. Like if we rub our fingers across a surface that has a regular pattern, we don't get as excited about that as we do about the bass kick or something like that.
And how did you got into computers? So what's your computer story? Are you a hacker at some point in your life, or how did that start? The whole computer fascination?
I guess it started with video games, that you could play video games, and I felt they were so mysterious. I felt very unlucky when I was growing up that I had missed the internet revolution and the 80s, and when the big VAC machines and everything. It felt like after that, it's all been done. Now it's just sort of incremental improvements. And so when I was at university, I was like, I guess born in the wrong time. And now I know that that's not the case. And we are right in the middle of the machine learning sort of takeoff. So that's good. And there'll probably be similar types of
So
things.
you started, when you get started to code? When was the first time you coded something?
On my TI-82, I think it was, I made role-playing games with Visual Basic.
Cool.
Yeah.
So how old are you then?
I don't know. I guess I was pretty old. I was like 13 or 14.
13, 14.
Yeah.
Cool.
But I felt computers were mysterious. Like you saw a prompt and there was something magic going on behind it. And when you send it commands, it would go into the void and then come back. And I was like, how is it doing that? How is it thinking, basically? And now we've said, that's easy. It's the advanced AI stuff that's advanced. We've sort of pushed the goalpost forward for what intelligence is. But to me back then, that was so mysterious and magic. And that's what I wanted. And I felt that operating system hackers, those were basically the wizards of programming. So when I was younger, I wanted to become an operating system designer. So I started learning a lot about, that's why I studied computer science. I wanted to learn about parallel processing and all the challenges that OS designers had. And I learned a lot from that because they have to solve the general problem. They're not allowed to solve a specific problem. Like if they're writing a threading library, the threads have to perform well in all circumstances, for a video game, for a database, and for everything else. And that's a lot harder than like when Hadoop came out and he was like, you can map reduce. Look, if you have a problem that's embarrassingly parallel, you just ask many people to solve each part of the problem. I'm like, but that's not a hard problem. The hard problem is if you have one resource that everybody has to share and fight over. And so I didn't even get what Hadoop was good for. And obviously it's good for lots of stuff, but I was so much into the operating system thing that was just the only thing I stared at.
It's amazing how Hadoop can make something so embarrassingly, parallelly simple to do, extremely complicated.
Yeah, it's a lot of code for very little. Yeah, sure.
And so what's your your journey into the industry, so to speak, or from studying and what's that journey all about?
I think the biggest lie we're told in university is that you need to do a career. You need to make a career. And the career is to get a good title and then get a better title. That's what the career is. And you can cheat your way forward, because if your title has the word manager in it or something, then it's better. And what they should have said is you need to focus on improving yourself, get really good at something and invest in yourself. And if you're really good and you provide a lot of value to people, you'll do very well for yourself. And I'm still learning it now. Even now I'm thinking, oh man, I should have just focused on doing what's right, what's good, what's interesting, instead of trying to be clever about that kind of stuff. So I went to university precisely because that's what you're supposed to do. And I was there for 5 years, and I'm so bad at school, and I didn't pass the tests or anything. I went to lots of courses and did a lot of neat open source stuff. But on the other hand, I wouldn't have gotten my first job if I hadn't been at university. So I guess that was a good thing.
Speaking about careers, I think you have a very interesting career. And you started off like a super big company and then moving into, having your own consultancy and your company and doing that. Can you start off, how did you get started at Microsoft?
Right. Microsoft had a really nice trainee program.
Yeah.
Those programs are really good at many of these big companies because they're made to teach you a lot of the things that are required at big companies. Processes. Running that or getting that many people to work in the same direction is super challenging. And it's not until you work at a huge company like that you're privy to all those things. And when I went down to smaller companies, I missed a lot of the things that were from Microsoft. But the reason, so Microsoft was basically the dream job. Everybody at university wanted to work at IBM, Google, Microsoft, and all these places. And I'm always going to have a soft spot for Microsoft because what it did for me and what I learned. And I still think Apple is a bit prissy. I don't want to run, I don't want to have a MacBook and that kind of thing.
Perfect. But, look at this. One of the best thing I love about Robert. Okay, good.
But and it's actually I was the BSD Unix guy at university. So a lot of people say, "Oh, you're such a traitor starting at Microsoft." I'm like, this is what you're supposed to do. And back then it was right when Windows Vista was at the end of its life cycles. It was the worst time to start at Microsoft. But I learned that...
Which part was it you worked at?
Well, I was at Microsoft Sweden, which is a sales organization. So I was technical pre-sales. And I had lots of great customers from the central bank to IKEA to everything. And it was a real privilege to get to work with all of them. But what I learned quite quickly was that, all these big companies have company values, and we're going to change the world. But it's not a team of 5 people. It's a machine. And if you're not running in the same direction, you're going to get run over. And it's nothing specific about Microsoft. It's just any big company like that. If you're not headed in the same direction as them for a moment, you'll just get run over. And I resented that a lot. I took it very personally because I thought we were all friends and we would just work together and stuff. But it's not. The company has one direction, and if you're not really headed in that direction right then it doesn't suit them. So I changed, and I kept on going to smaller and smaller companies, and I started my own company after a while. And I don't think I can ever go back. But it's a weird thing because, like I said, I'll always have a soft spot for Microsoft, and I'm extremely grateful for what I learned.